Now let's practice keyframing video. As you remember, keyframing is when you tell the video editing program you want to start something like scaling up or scaling down, resizing, or opacity, and then when you want to end something. So you're telling it you want it to move, you want to animate the image. Okay, we also call that a digital zoom. Right? So I'm going to bring in two photos. When you're working with photos in particular, it's the Ken Burns effect, named after the filmmaker who used it, really relied on it in the Civil War, where it was first broadly used in the Civil War documentary series. Okay, so I have these two photos. I'm going to bring them in over here. Notice it renamed the sequence the first photo I brought in. So that's the sequence. This is the photo. All right. You're going to notice that this photo, the group of three here, is a bigger resolution photo. It's a larger photo. And so I'm going to actually go ahead and scale this one up by making sure it's selected and going over to Effect Controls. Okay. So I'm going to scale this up, and I'm going to predict that it's probably 150 is what it needs to be scaled to, and that's correct. So I made it larger by 150%. Okay, so as you saw in the example video, which is also going to be linked in the description of this video, the Ken Burns effect attempts to add some movement to a still image. A still image is rather boring, it's two-dimensional, and sometimes the audience really doesn't know where to look. So you want to direct the audience's gaze to, let's say, Ed's hands here holding the camera by zooming in to that point. Usually it's very subtle, very gradual, and that will depend on how long your clip is and how drastic, how much you want the program to move that zoom in, how fast it will go. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to remember you're going to Effect Controls. It's nested in with the source monitor. Okay, so there's the source monitor. Here's the Effect Controls, and you only want to click it once. Okay, you click it once. If you click it twice, it sometimes will go to something else like the source monitor. Just click it once. Okay, making sure that's the one you are on is selected. This is the time indicator. Okay, you want that to be on there somewhere, and you see it corresponds to the time indicator up here. This is like a little miniature representation of your timeline, but with all your keyframe parameters. Okay, so you see this, and let's say I want to start wide. I want to start the shot at the normal full frame shot, but I want it to start zooming about here. Okay, that's where I'm going to do a keyframe. Okay, this is a stopwatch, that little image there. So you see when you gloss over it, it says toggle animation. Okay, I'm going to click, and you're going to see it created a keyframe. That's the position. You have horizontal and vertical parameters here. Scale is the sizing of it. Right now it's 100%. I'm going to also click the keyframe there, and you're going to see that is an actual keyframe. It's the literal frame of that image. If it's a video, it would literally be one frame, one image of your many images that make up a video shot, right? It actually marks that to begin your animation, your opacity, your rotation, whatever it is you're keyframing. Okay, now I'm going to go down further, and this corresponds. You could drag it either way for this one or this one. All right, I'm going to drag it down my clip, and let's say I want the zoom to stop moving about right here, and so I'm going to just start moving these parameters. Okay, so I can go in really tight and see it. Notice if you go too tight, it begins to get blurry, or you literally begin to see the pixels, right? Just like in Photoshop, so we don't want to go in too tight. The guide has historically been 150 if you're cropping, but for something like this, since it's only going to be on the screen briefly, that's going to be okay if we go in. That's 667% basically. And you can move these parameters. That's the horizontal, and that's the vertical. Okay. Now, when you play this, and you see it made keyframes there to what I just did, the parameters I just did. I did not have to do this again. You only have to do that once. It's very intuitive, It will then, once you start to change this, you have to move that time indicator over. It'll then make keyframes for you. So let's watch that clip now. That's photo. Okay, you see it went in close to his hands. Now let's say, well, wow, that is awfully fast. Well, one thing you could do is you could lengthen the clip. Okay, it has to be selected. Okay, I had this one selected. You have to make sure the clip is selected. You're going to have to drag these over, and then it will be considerably slower. So you see what I did? I grabbed them by drawing a rectangle around them, and then I dragged those over. Now if you put them here, which we're going to do in a minute, you can make it seem like it's continuing even after you go to another shot. It especially is effective if you're using dissolves. But let's show you now. Okay, it's a little bit slower of a zoom because I made it a longer shot. It's on the screen longer. Okay, now since I zoomed in on this next shot, we probably should do a zoom out. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come to the end of it and do our keyframes here. Making sure it's selected on the timeline. Okay, so it goes white. I'm going to do position and scale. So I'm doing this backwards now when I come to kind of near the beginning. Okay, and then I'm going to start changing the parameters. I'm going to start on a zoom in. Okay, and you saw that how it made the keyframes as soon as I started playing with these parameters. Notice that you have to bring that time indicator over. You start doing that here, it just makes the whole clip zoomed in. Okay, and then you see now it's zooming out within my image, and that is the Ken Burns effect. So the two clips together Alright, if you want it to be a faster zoom in, usually they're very subtle, but you can move those over, those two keyframes, and then it will be a much faster zoom out. But let's say you wanted to make it dissolve into each other, each of these shots. Okay, well, one thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to grab these and make these go to the edge. Okay, then you want to grab the other one and make these two go to the edge. Okay, because then it's going to continue. You add the dissolve, Command D. I selected the one in the middle there, right, that line where the clips meet. Command D. Okay, so it's a nice dissolve where there's continual motion. Okay, that's kind of nice. So practice that.